to write your story on, because today is the day that we're going to get our ideas written down. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and grab my assignments. Maybe, what's it doing? Nope, that's the wrong one. Okay, just had it open. There we go. Okay, so here we go. Everything. All right, so today is our last day to, again, like to finish up what we were talking about. We also, on next week, we are going to start again with that writing idea of your own story, but we also have an assessment on Monday. An assessment over, you're gonna read a poetry, you're gonna read a poem, and you're gonna read some poetry, and you're gonna look just at the poem like we did for the glass frog and the poison dart frogs and the wood frog. You're gonna have an opportunity, they're gonna ask you some questions, and you're going to have to really analyze the poem. So that's why we spent a lot of time doing that, like yesterday and those other days. And then you are going to also spend some time, you're going to read a pourquoi. And in that pourquoi, you are going to look for the purpose. What's the purpose of the story? And what you're going to look for the problem. You're going to look for all those parts that we have been talking about as essential parts of a narrative. So today is sort of a wrapping up day. And then on Monday, we're going to see what you learned. Okay. So here we go. Our learning targets today are: I can write the end of a pourquoi tale that explains the message or purpose of the narrative. And so that's what we as a class are doing. And then I can use a graphic organizer to help me plan my ideas for my narrative pourquoi. So let's think about a purpose of a narrative. So a purpose is to entertain, but a purpose is also sometimes to say a message. And when we are looking at our point or our purpose, oh goodness, what happened here, of our story, we have, it's a way to wrap it up, right? And then for a pourquoi, it's the why of what we're doing. So but before we get to the why part, we need to go ahead and open that workbook. And we are going to take a little, just do another little quiz about what the end of a story might have to it. And so in your workbook, it is page, oh, I had it already and then it went away. It is page 21. Page 21, everybody. Page 21. I'm going to go ahead and use my dot camera for this one, even though it's on the screen and it's in your hand, hopefully. But I'm going to go ahead and dot camera it for my friends who maybe need that. All right. So on page 21, it says, a student has written the ending of a pourquoi tale about frogs that answers the question, why are poison dart frogs so colorful? Read this paragraph from the narrative and answer the question that follows. How strange. It seems to be getting cooler, Rana thought. First, Rana took a deep breath of fresh air. Then he bent down to see if drab, ash, and gray were all right. Rana was amazed. Drab, ash, and gray were safe, but they were not dull and green anymore. Drab was ruby red with flecks of gold. Ash was bright sapphire blue with streaks of black. Gray looked like a shimmering rainbow. The walls of the cave melted and coated the frogs in brilliant colors. Okay, we did one of these about the beginning. Let's see how we do on the ones about the end. The student needs to fix the ending by explaining how the problem is solved. Which sentences would best fit in this paragraph? So you're going to choose A, B, or C. Here we go. Let's look at A. But his little friends hopped away from him. He followed them, but they just hopped more quickly, deeper and deeper into the cave. B. Then he saw a giant crack in the cave wall. Rana scooped up the 3 frogs and wriggled through. C. Now, no one will forget your bravery, said Rana, and to this day, the children and grandchildren of those 3 little frogs have beautiful skin, the color of gems. Okay. Explaining how the problem is solved. Which one would best fit this paragraph? All right, take a moment, figure out which one you decide, reread them perhaps, go back and reread those. Don't hurry. This is, even though this is not a graded question, it's very much similar to a question that you might see next week. All right, so look real quick. Okay, everybody make a choice. Give me a thumbs up if you've got your choice. Still looking for thumbs. All right.
Mrs. Harrison, I'm going to be right back. I saw Elena was working in our library and she's not on, so I'm going to go check and see where she is.
Perfect. All right.
I'll be right back.
No worries. All right. Looking for thumbs up if you've got if you've got an answer. All right. Looking. Looks like a couple people are still thinking. You're making a choice, A, B, or C. Which one wraps up our story? And then you're going to have to tell me why you think it wraps up the story. Okay? So you have to have a reason behind what you chose. I have several friends who don't have cameras on today. I understand that some of you, for various reasons, but most of the people I have cameras off for should have their cameras on. All right, thank you, friends. All right, okay, raise your hand if you picked A. Raise your hand if you picked B. Raise your hand if you picked C. Okay, Cole, which one did you choose?
I chose C.
C, and why did you choose C?
Sit down.
Because it already says that they went out of the cave, so that's why I don't think it's A, because that he came before they went out of the cave, and B, because that's already in, so I thought it was C.
Okay, I like your explanation. So let's think about it. It says would best fit this paragraph explaining how the problem is solved. So if we look at the first one, but his little friends hopped away from him. Is that part of our solution, or is that part of the problem? That's part of the problem, isn't it? Yeah, that's still part of the problem. He followed them. They just hopped more quickly, deeper and deeper to the cave. That one is definitely part of the problem. And we're looking for the ending where the solution is. But so we're definitely, it's not A, my friends. B, then he saw a giant crack in the cave wall. Rana scooped up the 3 frogs and wriggled through. Is that solving all of our problem either? No, it's definitely not. So that one, it's not B either. So it's going to be C. Now, no one will forget your bravery, said Rana, and to this day, the children and grandchildren of those 3 little frogs have beautiful skin the color of gems. So remember, the whole name of this story was Why Poison Dart Frogs Are Colorful. Which one of those explains that?
C.
The last one, C, right? C explains why they are colorful. Because they were brave, and now they have these colorful. Now we know this is a pourquoi, so we know this is not a real story. This is not really saying why they are colorful. When we get to all of our nonfiction work that we're going to do in the next unit, we are definitely all going to really talk about why the frogs are the way they are and how that helps them survive. Because that's actually the name of our unit or this particular module, right, is adaptations and how they help the frog live. Now this is a made up one. It's meant for entertainment, right? It's meant to explain things in a fun way. And that's why you're going to be writing a pourquoi too. It's not going to be a real story. But this is our opportunity to be creative, right? For sure. All right, I see some hands up. Did somebody have a question? Anybody have a question? Mrs. Aubin is not helping me in, so I have to double check. Miss Abby, did you have a question?
Can I go to the bathroom?
You may, yes. Come back quickly, though. I don't want you to miss much. All right. So that is a typical question you might find on Monday. They might ask you, what is the purpose of the story? And you will have to be able to choose the one that best fits our story, that multiple choice kind of idea, or short answer sort of idea. Okay? So think about that for what we're doing for now. All right. So now I'm going to go back out of my dot camera for just a minute. There we go. Back to our presentation. So we have this whole big story, right, that we have been writing. And I know that I have some friends who were not necessarily here on all of the days. I'm glad I have most people today. So we're just going to quickly remind ourselves of what the symbol means and what the story was that went with that symbol, because today you are going to do some planning and we're going to use these symbols to help us plan. We're not writing the sentences today. We're making sure we have our plan. And if you don't get your plan done today while we're working on it together, you will have some time tomorrow. In fact, it's required that you get the plan finished tomorrow if it's not finished today, so that you can be ready for next week to write. So here we go. Here's our establishing the situation. Long, long ago, in a pond on the savannah, a group of pollywogs were hanging out looking for food. The pond was surrounded by grasses and rocks. Maddie, the largest of the pollywogs, was keeping watch for the predators while the other pollywogs were eating small plants. Here's our next one. Maddie was a baby African bullfrog and had always been the frog most worried about lizards, also in the savannah. Maddie's friends were named Bill, Flower, and Phil. Bill was tiny, Flower was tinier, and little Phil was the tiniest. They were always worried about eating, not worried about being eaten. Maddie and her friends, here's our next symbol. There's our cloud, symbolizing our problem, right? Maddie and her friends had just finished a game of hide and seek. They decided they needed a snack. They began searching for food. Someone else was also looking for food. Maddie saw the head of a lizard coming from behind the rocks. Maddie recognized it was Steve the chameleon. Okay, so here's where we have our problem. And then we have this section here, which is how the arrow represents how the different characters respond or act, or what they say, or what they think about the problem. Maddie yelled, "Watch out, it is Steve. Remember, he tried to eat us last week." Maddie was scared, but realized she had to be brave and save her friends from being eaten. She said, "We have to find a place to hide." The pollywogs looked around for a place to hide. Dun, dun, dun. But we have two of our suns. The sun represents our solution. And so in the first sun, we have a section here where we are using what are the variety of ways that they tried to solve the problem. Maddie bubbles, "Dive under the plants." All of the pollywogs get under the leaves, but Steve just uncovers them with his tongue. They try to cover themselves with mud, but he manages to find them anyway. "We have to get out of here," said Maddie. So they're trying to solve the problem, but the second one has where they really manage to solve their problem. Phil suggests, "Try to wiggle your body." They all try, but no one moves. "Try to jiggle," says Flower. They all try, no luck. Phil says, "Everyone try to wobble." No one moves. Finally, Maddie says, "Everyone needs to wiggle as hard as they can." All of a sudden, the 4 pollywogs shoot across the pond from Steve. "We made it," they all cheered. "We're safe." Steve could no longer get to them, so he walked away. So we've solved our problem. Now, no longer is Steve going to eat them. Phew. And here is the part that we are on right now. So I took, again, the part, actually, let me just real quick before we start copying, because I know you guys are going to get to that. Real quickly, inside, we know that our plan that we had on page 11, oops, why did my dot camera not come back up? On page 11, we have this section here. So remember, we all copied this down together. So page 11, it says, what is the message or purpose of your narrative? Well, the basic one is that pollywogs learn to wiggle to get away from predators, right? Steve is our predator. He was the chameleon that was trying to get them. So this is the basic idea. We're explaining that pollywogs wiggle, and they learn to wiggle to get away from predators. So somehow I'm going to put that into my story. It explains why pollywogs wiggle. So taking this part and turning it now into my story so that it makes sense. I'm not just going to copy this sentence because that doesn't make it sense with our story. But this is our basic idea that now we're turning in to our story. So I will read you what I wrote. So here we go. Maddie, Phil, Flower, and Phil realized that the wiggling was the key to moving around the pond. From that day on, the pollywogs wiggled to find food and to swim away from any predators that came along. Until they eventually grew legs, the pollywogs were sure glad they could wiggle. That is why pollywogs today wiggle. All right, so I took that one idea and made it into a sentence that connects to our story and tells what the purpose was, to tell why pollywogs wiggle and why it was useful that they could wiggle. All right, so on your page 14, you should be on page 14 in your workbook, and go ahead and copy down our last little section. And it's really important that you have these to refer to when you are writing your own story, because you can go back to these pages and go, I don't remember what I'm supposed to put in this section. And now it gives us the idea of the fact that we have now two possible examples of what the point could look like. The one for the colored frogs, it says, and to this day, the children and grandchildren of those three little frogs have beautiful skin, the color of gems. So that's how they wrapped up that story. This is how we're wrapping up our story. Okay, I'm watching you guys write. Good job. Most of my friends are very focused. Trying to see you and not cover my screen. Not doing a very good job is what I've determined. When you are finished copying, give me a thumbs up so that I know that you are ready to move on. Remember also, you want to make sure that you use your pretty good handwriting so that you can read this again later.
What page is this?
Page 15. Page 14 was the two solutions we did yesterday, and page 15 is our point. Yeah, good job. What's the point of the story?
Can you repeat the directions again?
So you are writing this down inside the box right now. You are copying Maddie, Bill, Flower, and Phil realized that wiggling was the key to moving around the pond. Okay. And the reason that I wrote it and didn't wait for you guys is I figured I wasn't really adding any new information to our story. I was just taking what we already knew from our story and wrapping it up. Otherwise, I would have asked your opinions, but I think I didn't add any really new ideas. I just used what we had already planned together.
And it's on page 15.
Page 15. Page 15. It looks exactly like this, but a little bit smaller. Right? It's got that big point, right? That big symbol at the top telling us that that is the end, the purpose of our story. All right, I see lots of hard work going on. Good job. Give me a thumbs up when you're finished. so that I know that you're done. And Bird, just so you know, if you don't get all this down, no worries. Miss Bird, are you listening? Because it's right attached to our assignment today, okay? This very same slide is in that slideshow that's on the assignment, okay? So everybody, if you don't get it finished or you're not sure you did it right, or if you're worried about it, all of this is attached to today's assignment, so you don't need to worry. You can go back to our slideshow and just scroll down to this one and it will help you, okay? So don't worry, Miss Bird, okay? I liked I like the way Mom solved that though. She took a picture. All right. Okay, just quickly looking through with how many friends are, give me a thumbs up again if you're finished. Most of you are still working. I'm gonna give us another minute or so. I see you're working hard, so that's good. Thank you. Thank you, thank you. Again, if you missed any of the page, because I know there were a couple of us who missed yesterday or the day before, if you miss any of if you were missing any of the different rectangle squares that are on your workbook on pages 12, 13, 14, or 15, you can always come back to this slideshow and fill them in if you were missed anything. All right. Seeing a couple more thumbs up now. All right, looking good. I'm going to give about 30 more seconds. But again, if you're not finished, don't worry. You will have the opportunity to find this particular slide on the slideshow. It's always attached to your assignment, okay? So please don't fret. All right, so it is the big day for you to start thinking about your story that you are going to write. So hopefully you gave a little bit of thought to what you might want to write about. And we're going to keep some things in mind. So we're writing a story to entertain. It's not a scientific story. It's kind of explaining a natural phenomenon, but we are really entertaining the reader. This is your opportunity to be creative, okay? We're going to make sure that our stories have a beginning, middle, and end, and we are going to go through each section as we plan for that to make sure that you have a beginning, a middle, and an end with all the parts that we need to have, okay? And then this is an imagined experience again, so you don't need to do any research. Although what Mrs. Harrison did do is when you guys came up with some ideas, I did want to make it seem like the story would make sense or that it was somewhat real. And so I did look up when we decided to have a frog in the African savannah in a pond. I did look up to see what kind of other characters I might have in that area. And so if you have in some of your characters, well, obviously we're going to have some frog characters, but if you have some other characters that are in your story that you need a little bit of information for, you could certainly try to find out what like a certain predator might be in a certain area. But, or what kind, like I said, I looked up what kind of lizards there were. So you might be able to do just, after we get done here, if you want to do a little bit more of, what would that really be like? So to give you some ideas, feel free, but you don't really have to. You don't have to go through that. All right, and then I'm going to talk a little bit more later about how to add some dialogue, but we're not adding dialogue in our plan today, so you don't need to worry about that. So keeping in mind our symbols that we have, keep those in mind because those 6 symbols are going to help us plan today. All right. So we came up with a huge list of why questions. Say again. Did we have a question? Okay. Hold that thought perhaps. So here's our list of questions. I asked you yesterday and the day before to maybe think about what question you would like to use for your story. It does not need to be on this list, but it certainly can be on this list. So Noah, it looks like you have a question, buddy. Do you have a question?
I accidentally pressed it.
Okay, that's no worries. I just want to make sure. I do that. I click on things all the time, so no worries. Haley Booker, do you have a question, Sweet Pea?
I have one more question to add to the list.
Oh, okay. We'll go. Certainly, I probably won't type it in there right now, but what question were you thinking about?
Why are bullfrogs so big?
Why are bullfrogs so big? That sounds like an excellent story that you should write, for sure. So if we're looking at our list, I'm trying to move my, I don't know if this is in your way or not. I'm looking at my list. Why do frogs have long tongues? We have a story about that, but you could write a totally different story about that. But we had a story about kicker. Why are frogs poisonous? Why are frogs different colors? Why do they jump? Why do their eyes bulge? Why do they have, why do they climb so well? You could even ask some questions about their feet, why they're slimy, why they're green, you know. So here are some options. If you haven't picked one yet, I would look at this option, look at this list and make a choice, because we are going to, and I asked you if you had a choice already, to add it to your page that you have in your workbook. I just realized my page and your page are different numbers. It happens when Mrs. Harrison uses her teacher stuff. So you are going to be working today on pages 18 and 19. All right. And so I asked if you had a question that you already knew, that you were going to write it down over in this area here to remind you of what's the whole point of the story, is to answer this question that you have here, right? So if you haven't already done that, you might wish to do that now. And so again, when I had ours said, pollywogs learn to wiggle to get away from predators. So this isn't a question, because our question was, why do pollywogs wiggle? So you may not know exactly why yet your question is being answered, how exactly your question is being answered yet. You may not have thought of your whole story yet, but you should write your question right here. Give me a thumbs up just so I can have a little bit of an idea. How many people already wrote their idea right on page 19? How many people already came up with their idea? Why can't I seem to exit out of my, oh boy. Mrs. Harrison is definitely having technical difficulties today. It won't let me exit out of my page. There we go. All right. Yes, Miss Sunny.
This is Miss, oh, sorry.
No, please. I don't see any faces right now, so I'm working on that though. Miss Sunny, do you have a question?
No, I'm just raising my hand because I already had it down.
Oh, because you already had it. Perfect. Thank you. That was awesome.
And Marin mentioned she has a question for her story. It is, why are there so many breeds of frogs?
Oh, all right. Very good. I like how you put breeds of frogs in there. That's awesome, because we don't know what kind of kinds there were. So.
Jensen has his hand up as well.
Mr. Jensen, which one did you pick?
Well, I have a question, but I wrote, why do some frogs live under mud?
Ah, why do frogs live under mud? All right.
And then
so
Lila Morris.
All right, Lila, what did you pick?
I picked why are cats and frogs not friends?
Why are cats and frogs not friends? I remember you came up with that one the other day. That was good. All right, who else has one for me? That they put in
Elena Baugh.
Oh, Elena. Which one did you pick, bud?
Why do frogs live in ponds?
Why do frogs live in ponds?
And that's
All
what
right.
Robert also
Oh,
typed in the
good.
chat.
Ooh, I think it'll be excellent to see the different types of stories that you can make with, you know, the same question, but yet different stories to answer that question. Awesome.
And Charlie Van Rickley had his hand up. I'm not sure if he
Perfect. Do
still
you
wants
want,
to
so
share.
Mrs. Lobbin, you could run this for just a second. I can't seem to find any of my little people anymore, and I can't figure out how to get it back. Oh, here, I'm just going to.
Okay.
So who did you, Charlie Van Rickley?
Yeah, I think he was ready to share.
All right.
Why are frogs attracted to light? Oh, why frogs aren't attracted to light?
All right. So why they prefer to be in the dark then? Okay. Well, I can't wait to see your story about that. All
Josh
right.
Carter. Am I running this or?
Yeah, go for it for just another second. I don't know why it's.
Why do frogs walk?
I didn't quite hear that, Josh. Can you repeat it?
Why don't frogs walk?
Why don't frogs walk? So like, why do they hop, right? All right, Astria.
Why do frogs have slimy skin?
Oh, I love it. And Jensen, you had a question I see in the chat. What is your question?
Where are we going to be writing like our story?
Okay, so we're not going to be writing the actual story yet today. We are going to be planning it. So you know that we always give ourselves an opportunity to make sure that we have a plan before we go to write something when it has to do with EL. So we are actually right now going to work on page 18 and 19 together. All right, so everybody was probably looking for that page 19. Good job. I hope you all have a question written in there. Now, keeping that question in mind, some of you have had a chance to think through this already, and some of you are like, whoa, I just picked a question. So we are going to be working on the parts of this together for the next 20 minutes or so, but when we finish our EL today, if you have the ideas in your head and you just didn't have a chance to write them down, then I would do that before they leave your head, before you go have lunch and do your other work. But we also will have some time tomorrow. That does not mean you should wait until tomorrow. That just means you will have some time to catch up tomorrow, okay? So let's look at page 18. So remember, we're using all of the essential elements of a narrative. And so it always starts out with that lovely symbol there, right? And that starts for establishing the situation. And so we have 3 questions that you are going to answer right now, or jot some ideas down. You are using pencil. Why do you think it's a good idea to use pencil? Anybody have an idea about why we're using pencil and not pen? Especially since we're doing some planning.
You can erase it.
So we can make some choices, right? So we can make some changes if we want. And if we make a mistake and change our mind, now we'll have an opportunity to write something different, right? Okay, so I'm going to actually skip the first question for a second because I want you to think about the where and the when first, because that will probably help you with your what is happening in our story. So I'm going to remind you about what we put in our story on our plan. We had, remember, we decided it was long ago, and in a pond in a savanna. So that's what we wrote on our plan. So here's ours from when we did it together. You're going to have different ideas though, right? So think about when you want your story to take place and write that down, and where you want your story to take place and write that down. Finish those 2 questions for me. And don't worry about like the word Savannah. If you don't know how to spell the word, like you don't have to have it be in Savannah by any means. Think about where you want your creative story to take place and when you want your creative story to take place. Don't worry so much about spelling right now. As long as you know what it means and you're sounding it out as best as you can, that's fine. All right? So you're putting your where and your when. And if you decide later that you want to change your where or you want to change your when, that's why you're writing in pencil. Right?
What page is it?
Page 18.
Miss Harrison,
Yes.
where do you write the question on page 18?
The question actually was at the end, was on page 19 where it says, what is the message or purpose of your narrative?
Okay, thank
Yep, you bet. The purpose is basically because the purpose of the story is to explain in a fun way why, and then the answer to your question, right? So your question comes under the point. You're not going to write the question as when you do the actual, your story. That's going to be the title of your story, technically.
Oh.
Does that make sense now? That our title was, why do pollywogs wiggle? Or why do frogs have long tongues? Or why are poison dart frogs colorful? Those were the titles of our story. That will be the
Miss
title of
Harrison.
your story. Yes.
Did you know some frogs don't even have tongues?
Some frogs don't have tongues?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually true, Miss Harrison.
Interesting. Later on, we find some more information about that. That's interesting.
Miss Harrison,
Yes.
do we write our question in the box that says what is happening?
So nope, we haven't answered that question at all yet. We are just doing our where and our when.
So we're just doing our where and our when?
Yes.
Okay.
The question happens over here on page 19. The question happens here.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Now that you have a where and a when, and again, you can, if you get a better idea later, you can go back and jot this in. Okay. So because I added, remember we had a pond in the savannah, and then I figured out where, I'm like, oh, that's such being at, and I so then I added the word African savannah because we had an African bullfrog, right? And
Nancy,
so you
Alvin?
can add some information when you want.
No, darn. I'm sorry. I was hoping it was another parent. Thank you. No. Okay, bye-bye.
All right. So this is Aubin. I love how you're getting all your things, and I love it. All right. So here he has what is happening. So let's look at what is happening. So what is happening is pollywogs are trying to get away from a lizard. They were trying to find food. So what I wrote here isn't exactly true, is it? To start out our story, what were the pollywogs really trying to do? They were trying to find food. So they were trying to find food, and that's when along came the lizard. So if Mrs. Harrison had written in pencil, she could have easily erased that and realized that the pollywogs were really trying to find food in the pond. And that's what they were doing at the beginning of the story. So think about what is your frog or frogs going to be doing at the beginning of your story before the problem happens, okay? Before the problem happens. Are they trying to find food? Are they trying to, what are they doing in that place? If you didn't pick pond, If you pick something else, a river or someplace, then think about what would your characters be doing at the very beginning of your story, not what the problem is. Okay.
And Mrs. Harrison, I've got a couple questions.
Yes, please.
Lucas Stewart wants to know, is the when part what year it was?
You could put a year if you would like. I have had students put, 1962 or whatever, or we just said a long time ago. That kind of leaves it kind of ambiguous, kind of leaves it not, unsure of exactly when a long time ago is. You could say in the time of the dinosaurs. You could have all kinds of other little ways that you could write that. If you want to put a year, you certainly can. If you have a really wild dream, this is answering why the frogs do something. So a future sort of thing would be kind of complicated to be able to explain why something happens now that's happening in the future. But if you're creative enough, good luck. You could try that for sure.
And Mrs. Harrison, I have a student who is saying it's not going to do this. Is this important to be completing?
Oh, you have to complete this. Yes. In fact, this
So,
is your
Henrik,
grade. You get graded on. So let's think about when Mrs. Harrison and Mrs. Auden grade an assignment. One of the things it says is the planning section. You have to be able to have this for us to give you an adequate grade for the part about your writing process. Your writing process is planning and writing. So you have to do page 18 and 19. You have to do those. That's not an option.
Can I speak to Henrik real quick? I hope you know that chat goes directly to me and only me.
And me too.
Oh, you might see what he's typing. I'm going to call your mom, Henrik, and see if she can come help you. Okay, buddy? Maybe you can stay on with us after.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. All right. And I see some other hands up that people had some, I don't know if their hands are up because they have a question or if they just wanted to share something. So if you didn't pick pond, where are some places that maybe you did pick? Can some of you share some of the places you picked if they weren't, say, like a pond?
River.
A river? Okay. What else?
Lake.
A lake. Very good. Where else?
The ocean. Stream.
Stream. Ooh, I like that one.
Creek.
Creek.
Ocean.
Ocean. Okay.
Rainforest.
Rainforest. Do all frogs have to live in the water? We could have trees too, right? We could have a rainforest. That's awesome. You could have all kinds. Remember the wood frog?
And an enchanted forest.
Enchanted forest. Ooh, an enchanted frog. Oh boy. That sounds exciting. A bog. We could have a bog.
Lake Africa.
Oh, very nice. Okay. How about, what were some of the things people wrote down for when?
The Bahamas.
Oh, okay. So now we're having a hard time because we have 42 of us, right? So it's kind of hard. I wish I could. Why can't I not see everybody?
We actually have 40 of us.
I know, 40 of us today.
The Bahamas, Miss Harrison.
All right. So I'm going to stop sharing for a second so I can see some. Cole, what else did you pick?
10 minutes ago.
10 minutes ago? All right. Interesting. Evie, what did you choose?
I picked July 17th, 2020.
Oh, wow. So not very long ago. All right. Nixon, what did you pick?
2010.
So in the future? You picked in the 4010?
No, 2010.
Oh, 2000. Oh, okay. Very good. Sorry, I heard that wrong. I was like, wait a minute. That is super in the future. Holy moly. Hope I'm around by then. Jensen Cook, what did you pick, bud?
I picked 1492 when America was discovered.
Very interesting. All right. Very good. Okay, so we got to keep going because I'm looking at the clock and I want to get you mostly done with this before we go. All right, some characters. Think about who your main characters are. Now, I asked you guys for some names. You could write, so this is your opportunity. Not everybody got the names that they wanted for their main characters. So think about who your frogs Or maybe that you have other characters besides frogs. Think of some names that you want to put. And of course, you can change these later if you want. And then think about what are those characters like. So I picked small, tiny, tiniest. But think about, and then we also used words like brave. We used words like, so maybe your frogs are big. Like you said, they're bullfrogs. Maybe they're very large. So we are going to be using some words, some comparing words in our story. So that's why I have small, tiny, tinier, tiniest, those kind of things. And if you realize, and remember, Maddie is actually kind of big, isn't she? So I could add that to my list. All right, so I want you to do your characters, right? Everybody do your characters right now.
Harrison.
Yep.
My characters are.
Oh, wait, I have too many people talking at once. Hold on. Let me see if I can, there we go. Now I can see both people at one time. All right. Who had a question for me, my friends? Thank you for being helpful. Uh-oh.
Jensen has a question.
Or maybe they have something they want to offer as an option too. Jensen?
So this would be my main character. Everest.
Okay, so you've got some so good. Five your main character. Nixon, do you have a good character you're planning on? Thinking? I see your thinking voice, your thinking cap on. Abby, what are your characters?
I'm actually already on to what do they look like. I've picked all my characters. I've done my time and when and where. I'm just on to what they look like.
All right, excellent. Mr. Ryder. Uh-oh, where'd he go? There he is.
John's, Sub, and Bob.
Okay. All right. I'm glad you guys are finally getting the names you want.
I'm going to say something to Ellie Combs. Did she leave? She's asking if she can leave. And I said,
oh, no.
Ellie, we don't leave until you're dismissed, okay? I saw that in the chat. Okay. Can I go? So no, we can't go. We're going to stay on, okay?
All right, Madison, do you have some things you want to share with us?
I meant like my characters. And it's Maddie, Olivia, and Bob.
All right. I like how you got yourself in there again. All right. And Bob. All right. So if you want some more, and if you need some more time to think about what they're like, that's fine. You can go back to that. All right. Now you have to think about your problem. What is happening that is going to move your characters along so that they have to get to be the way they are, how your frog gets to be there. So we wrote the pollywogs are trying to keep away from Steve the lizard, but they have no legs. That's the problem. If you go back to thinking about what was the problem with Kicker, Kicker couldn't catch the flies for the contest. If you think about the problem with the poison dart frogs, their problem was that there was a fire and they couldn't get out of the cave, right? So think about what's your problem going to be. And because this is going to move along everything that's on the second page, on page 19. You got to think about, and we are going to leave these words here undone for right now, because I have a lesson next week that we are going to help add some words to the bottom. So we're just worrying about the problem right now. Who has a problem that they want to share with us? Who has a problem that they want to share with us? I'm trying to get somebody who I haven't gotten yet. Let's see. Haley Calendar, what's the problem in your story?
That they're super sticky and they can't move around.
Oh, all right. I can't wait to hear the rest of it. August, what's your problem?
Jerry is a Komodo dragon.
Uh-oh. Is he trying to eat him? Jerry trying to eat him? That could be a problem. All right.
And I have something to share from Robert, if I could.
Oh, yes, please.
He said he Google searched where do most frogs live, and it said For their habitat, frogs need to be around areas with a water source to reproduce, but other than that, they are found on every continent except Antarctica and in almost every environment. The poison dart frog lives in the tropical forests of Central and South America. So he wrote that all in the chat. So I wanted to make sure I got that in.
Robert, I can't wait to see the details in your story. It sounds like
I just copied and pasted.
all right, Robert. Good job. But Robert, hopefully I can't wait to see you get all of that, some of that in there in that story. All right, Josh Carter, what's the problem of your story?
The mountain lion called Strike.
Oh, a mountain lion. So wherever your where is must be someplace where mountain lions live. All right, interesting. Abby, where's your story? What's the problem in your story?
My problem is the frogs are trying to get away from Bob the Megalodon.
Okay, interesting. So your story is in the past for sure. All right, Charlie Van
Let
Rick.
me apologize to Ellie Combs because she didn't want to leave. She wanted to share her.
Share. Oh, okay.
So I apologize, Ellie. I misunderstood your chat.
Okay. Hey, Charlie, go, what's your problem in your story, buddy?
The frog is scared of the moon because it thinks it is going to get eaten, and that will all the other frogs migrate to.
Oh, I like how, because that's bright and yours is about the light. Good thinking, buddy. Good thinking. Benjamin Bowers, what's your problem?
So, my problem is gonna be a hawk dives down and gets them. The frogs.
Oh, all right. I hope he doesn't end up getting them, but all right. He's trying. That's good. All right. All right. I need everybody to, I know you've got some more ideas. I'm so glad you guys have great ideas. Let's look at page 19. Let's go back to page 19 where we are looking at, so now let's go back and think about, now here's the middle. Here's where there's going to be some action going on. How does your main character, whoever it is, how is your character feeling about being scared of the moon, being scared of the mountain lion, being like, are they scared? Are they brave? Are they happy? Like with a problem, usually you don't have a lot of great happy feelings, but you know, be creative. So how is your character feeling? Everybody write down some feelings that you're going to put in your story. In our story, it was that Maddie was feeling scared, but she also was feeling protective of her friends, and she had to be brave. Those are the three feelings we put. So you put down some feelings about how your main character is feeling. And then put yourself in the place of that character. What does that character think? In ours, they were worried that they were going to die, right? And then they needed to get someplace to hide. So this isn't action yet. This isn't the doing yet. This is the, what are they thinking about? What are they thinking? Yours might be similar to mine to ours, that they're worried that they might die, but it could be you could have a totally different problem. So think about what they feel and what they think. I know this is the part that really causes you to really get into your brain and think some things. So then here's, what do you think your character might say? So here we wrote, we need to find a place to hide. That would be something our main character would say. And I used my quotation marks there at the talking. So this might be something you think, you know, like if right now you can't think of exactly what they're going to say right now, this could be something you come back to based on maybe what's happening in the doing section. What does he or she do? So in our section, it said they first tried to cover themselves with plants, and then they did that with the mud. And then they tried out different movements, and then we didn't put all these movements in our story. We just wrote down some things. So think about what is the character gonna do to try to get themselves out of this bad situation? So we're not quite to the solution yet. We haven't solved the problem yet, but we're doing things to get there. So think about what your character will do to get through that situation. And this might lead you to this part right here, obviously, which is, how is it solved? What do they do here that gets them out of the situation? Now, we have to actually solve the situation. So think about how they're going to get themselves out of this problem. It takes a little bit of thought sometimes, for sure. So we're working on page 19. Anybody have something they want to share? So that give somebody some ideas about what they can write on their paper. All right. Let's see. Max Fox. What are some of the things you wrote down on page 19 in that first box?
On the first box, how does she feel? To the main character, they're all boys. They're all mad at the megalodon for eating one of their friends.
All right, so they're mad, huh? Okay. And then are they going to say mad things, hopefully, or express their feelings some way under the talking? And then what do they do to get themselves out of this, Max? Can you help us with that? Have you thought about that yet? What are they going to do because they're mad?
Quite their size, they have no chance of fighting a megalodon, so their best chance is try to get out of the mess.
To get out of there, to escape? All right, so you're getting those ideas written down right there, huh? All right, who else has some ideas they want to share? Miss Morris, tell me about yours a little bit.
So for what does he or she say is places I don't know, they're pretty slimy. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, that's, again, you're a very creative gal. I can't wait to see this story for sure. All right, Miss Abby, what are some of the things you wrote down?
So I wrote, for what does she do? Frogs hop away and the snake slithers away.
Okay.
Snakes eat frogs.
Right, they certainly do. So did they have some trouble before they just got away? Or do you have a couple things that could happen during that doing part before they just turn around and run away? Okay, good. All right, Miss Sunny Poe, what are some of your ideas, my friend?
So what does he or she say? What does she say is swim out of the sewers?
Ah, okay. Ooh, that's interesting. I can't wait to hear your story too. All right, Miss Marin, what are some of the things you added in there?
So, in what does she or he do? I said, so it's kind of hard to explain, but there's an evil frog named Aspen who keeps taking all the breeds of frogs away. So 3 other frogs have to try to save the many breeds of frogs that she trapped.
Wow. All right. Sounds like you've got a good plan going here. Awesome. All right. So everybody give me, okay, so what I'm going to ask you to do, because our time is about up here, is I'm going to ask you to continue, so a couple of us are going to stay on with Mrs. Aubin to talk about tomorrow's work. But those of you who, when it's time to go, and we give you permission, so pages 18 and 19 need to be done by the end of tomorrow. So if you're in the mode, if you have all your thoughts and you're like, I want to get this done now, then I need you to go ahead and finish page 19. If you're a little stuck, or if you have, or right now your time is short, this has to be done for tomorrow's work. If you are not done today, it is part of your assignment tomorrow. I have to have you have page 18 and 19 finished by the end of tomorrow's workday, all right? It's due tomorrow. So when it's time, I'm gonna ask you, when you get off of here, if you're like on a roll and you're like, I know what my solution is, so that's your sun part, right? Everybody look at that sun part. Write down your solution. Now, this isn't every sentence, right? This is a plan. This is not writing down all of your sentences. Our plan didn't look anything like our actual story. It had parts of it, but it's not the whole story. This is not your story. This is your plan. Are we all clear on that? Give me a thumbs up if you're clear on this. Is just your plan. This is not your actual story. We will write the story next week. All right? So don't fret. This is not your story. This is your plan. Okay? So you do not need to be writing sentences. This is your plan. You're jotting down ideas. But both of these pages need to have, because what happens next week is we will be writing this story. And that writing process works so much better if you have a plan ahead of time. All right? And this is part of your requirement for your writing process. Okay? It will be part of your grade for the whole story when you're all finished. I'm gonna ask you to see if we're still remote by then. You'll have to take some pictures. Otherwise, we'll pull them out and staple them to your story when back in January or however that works. Okay. So
Noah has a question.
Yes, Mr. Noah.
We fill out what squeezing words will you use to show the order of the events?
No, we are skipping that for now because I'm going to do the part of that. I'm going to do that next week with one of our lessons. So you get to skip that little section. Thank you I did say that while we were doing it, but I love that you reminded everybody. We do not need that part right there. The second part underneath the problem, we don't need those. We're going to add those in next week. All right? Yes, Lucas.
So the story doesn't have to be all about frogs, does it?
So it has to answer the question that you asked that was about frogs. So if it's why frogs have slimy skin, then it has to answer that. The story has to answer eventually why frogs have slimy skin. Okay? So it does need to have to do with frogs. It doesn't have to entirely do with frogs. No, you can have your other characters that are doing other things that aren't frogs. Does that make sense, Lucas? It's hard to answer a question about why frogs have slimy skin or whatever your question is without talking about frogs a little bit. It's got to, see what I mean? Makes sense for you there? All right. All right. Do we all understand what our job is?
And Serene, since you just got on, you'll have to watch the video to understand what we talked about for the past hour or so.
Okay.
And I can help you figure out how to get to that.
Yes, and I'll try to get that on as soon as possible after we're done here. All right, my friends.
Can I